Productive discourse. Productive discourse is a conversation where we talk about the positive activities that take place within our communities. In other words, we're constantly searching for our shining needle of common ground in that haystack of fear. Today, we're continuing our conversation about the sports heroes that developed their skills in Oakland, California. We're talking about people that took what I call the 3 E's: energy, enthusiasm, and excellence into their sport. Many of them won championships and were elected to their sports halls of fame and came back and served the community. Today, our guest is Monte Gordon. Monte grew up in Oakland and also attended Berkeley High. Monte played 3 years of varsity baseball, played baseball at Laney College in Oakland, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and when he finished with Cal Poly, he played pro ball in Italy. He's currently owning his own business, Red's Gourmet Salsa in Midland, Texas. Monte, welcome to Productive Discourse.
Thanks, Steve. It's good to be here, man. It's an honor. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you having you coming on the show today. I think we're going to have a great conversation. But as we get started, the first thing I'd like to ask you, how are you doing? It's been a crazy year. What are you doing to stay happy and healthy?
Well, we're doing fine here. I know Texas is a high COVID state. We share a house with my in-laws, and they're up in shit. And but we've been fortunate, man. No serious problems, no incidents. Everybody's doing fantastic. So far, so good.
That's great. That's great. So you grew up on the playgrounds of Oakland. How did you develop your passion for playing sports, particularly baseball? In the beginning, I really didn't know where it came from. I just like a duck to water. But at my dad's funeral, a guy, his name is Monte Upshaw. He played football with my dad. And he told me a story about my dad. He took a baseball and tied a string around it and attached that to a stick and hung it over my crib. And as the story goes, I played with this baseball for hours on end. So and then my dad, he was a heck of a baseball player too. You know, he was a letterman at Berkeley High in baseball. And I guess that's how I got it. It's in my DA, I suppose. Oh boy! So they put the ball over your crib, but when it was there, you knew what to do with it.
I guess so. Of course, I don't remember, but as long as I can remember, I've always had a baseball in my hand or a glove in my pocket.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good. Who were your role models when you were playing ball when you were young?
There's a lot of them. My dad played semi-pro baseball on Sundays. Most of the games that I was privy to were in Alameda, Washington Park, Lincoln Park, all the parks in Alameda, Bushrod in Oakland, wherever they could reserve a field. But the guys that my dad played with were all incredible athletes, and for whatever reason, most of them never made it to the big leagues. And those guys were the guys that I looked up to. Now, I watch Major League Baseball, and there's a ton of guys that I love watching play. If I had to pick a Major League Baseball player, it would be Dick Green. He was the second baseman for the Oakland A's. He's probably my favorite player. But the guys that I watched on Sundays being their bat boy, and eventually at 16 being able to play on their team, those are the guys that I look up to.
Tell me about your experiences playing in the sandlots and the schools of Oakland and Berkeley, and then playing with the adults on their team.
Yeah, well, I mean, we went to school in Berkeley, but my parents chose to live in Oakland for whatever reasons. My mother, my stepmom, she still lives in the house that they purchased back in 1970. But we spent the school year in Berkeley at Berkeley High. But during the summers, of course, we did our summer sandlot ball in Oakland, which was kind of it was nice because you got a chance to experience both cities. But I started out playing baseball for Jack Cakebread. He owned a repair shop in Oakland. It was called Cakebread's Garage. And my little league years, I played for him. Then after that, I went to play for Granny Goose Potato Chips. They had a team, and I played with them. Gary McCoy was on our team. Danny Liggins. Liggins played for the Cardinals for a while. And then after that, I played a little pony league, and then kind of bounced around wherever I could find a team to fill up the rest of my summer. But that was my experience playing sandlot ball.
It was an interesting time. You and I are about the same age, and while we were growing up, the businesses, like you mentioned, the car repair shop, the potato chip company, Granny Goose, they sponsored teams, and there were a lot of kids that had the opportunity to play sports and have a really good time with being sponsored by these businesses.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an interesting time. I can remember if we had a week or so during the summer where there wasn't any organized baseball going on. There was about 14 or 15 kids in my neighborhood where we would get up at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and we never threw wooden bats away. We'd always take like carpenter nails and nail them back together. They got cracked, and we had baseballs where the cover was falling off, and we would just barnstorm Oakland. We'd walk all through the neighborhood to try to find, some other neighborhood kids that would be willing to play against us. And there were times when we'd find 6 other kids and they didn't have another 3 guys to play on their team. We'd give them our 3 worst and then play a 9-inning baseball game, or till the baseball fell apart, until the bat fell apart. You just don't see kids doing that anymore.
Did you take the baseballs without the cover and put the electrical tape on it?
Yeah, we did everything that we could do to keep a bat together, and until that thing broke in half, and even then, if it broke in half, we try to find a way to put it back together just so we'd have a bat. A lot of times we just had one bat. That's before aluminum bats came along. So anything we could do to keep playing. I can even remember us traveling across that little bridge from Oakland to Alameda and trying to hunt down kids to play. Now that we're talking about it, but yeah, that was every day was baseball for me.
Well, if you went over the High Street Bridge, you were about 3 or 4 blocks away from Lincoln Park.
Yes.
So if you found the kids, you had a place waiting for you that was just a fantastic place to play ball. So
there was a little market right across the street from Lincoln Park, if I remember.
Still there.
Still there, yeah. And we'd go in there 13 deep, and the people that were working the store, they'd see us all come in at the same time, and everybody was like kind of nervous. They didn't know if we were in there to tear the place up or to buy something. But that was during the days when you could take 25 cents and get 25 pieces of candy, penny candy,
Right.
But those were the days, brother. Those were the days.
Yeah, there were some good times. Now, you mentioned some of the people you played ball with. You played ball with some people that went a long ways. Can you talk a little bit about the people that were, played well beyond the sandlots and the high schools?
Sure. I was probably not as good as a lot of the guys that I'm about to mention, but I was good enough where I could rub shoulders with them. I could still play and compete. The names that come to mind right now are Danny Liggins. He played with the Cardinals. Cliff Weary was a Houston Astro. Gary Pettis, right. I believe he's a base coach with the Astros right now. I was around Ricky Henderson and some of those guys. Ken Foster played with the Minnesota Twins. We played together at Laney College. But there was a bunch, Steve. I mean, it's kind of Al Woods. Before I went off to play ball in Italy, I worked out at a gym. It was a Nautilus gym in Alameda, and I worked out with those guys 3 days a week. So I had a chance to rub shoulders with them. But I was always good enough to be on these teams. But those guys were exceptional athletes. I was a good ball player. I played at Berkeley High. I played with Gene Ransom. I didn't get a chance to play with Claudelle Washington, who's out of Berkeley. I'm not even sure he played high school baseball, but he was well known as a great athlete and a basketball player. But the list goes on. I know I'm leaving out David Chenier, Phil Chenier, the basketball star, his brother. I played baseball at Berkeley High with David. The prettiest jump shot I've ever seen in my entire life.
Is that right?
And with back in those days, with an afro about 8 inches out there. This guy had the most beautiful jump shot that I'd ever seen in my life. But he and I are still friends on Facebook. We talk every once in a while. But those are some of the guys that I played with and around and watched play.
the first time I heard about Claudelle Washington, he's 18 years old. He's graduated from Berkeley High, and Charlie Finley signed him to play for the Oakland A's. It's like 1974, and
Right.
he played a major part of the A's winning the World Series that year. Just,
Yeah.
so he was definitely something special.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you talked about your dad being an athlete. He's a member of the Berkeley High School Hall of Fame. Would that be correct?
Yeah. We inducted Dad. He had since passed away, but we inducted Dad some years back, and I think it was the first year that Berkeley High established the Berkeley High Hall of Fame. And this guy, I'm telling you, he lettered in baseball, basketball, and football, and he ran track. And if I could tell a real quick story about him, just to kind of give you an idea of the type of athlete that he was away at a football game in Richmond. And I don't know if it was Richmond High or Kennedy High, but he was away playing in a football game. I think he scored 3 touchdowns. He gained over 300 yards as a running back. And they rushed back to the high school to watch a track meet. Well, he was supposed to be running a 100-yard dash, but it was during football season, so he wasn't able to participate until after. But anyway, the guy that was supposed to run the 100 got hurt. So they looked up in the stands, and they saw my dad. He still had all of his football gear on, and they asked him if he would come down and run the 100-yard dash. He had no track shoes or anything, so he takes his pads off, goes down on the field, lines up for the 100-yard dash barefoot, runs the 100-yard dash, and sets a record for the 100-yard dash at Berkeley High that stood for a lot of years. But that's just to give you an idea what kind of athlete he was.
You know, he grew up in a time. That era had Frank Robinson, Kurt Flood, Veda Pinson. Who else? John Brody was a quarterback at Oakland Tech. And then a little later, Willie Stargell, Tommy Harper, and Kurt Moten. That area in your dad's generation was just filled with sports heroes. And he competed with all of them, it sounds like. And
he knew a lot of those guys. And as a matter of fact, as kids, he would take us to events. We never missed a Raider game, probably never paid to get in a Raider game. Because he knew one of the Mr. Cunningham was a security guard at the Oakland Coliseum, and we would just walk around the Coliseum until we found Mr. Cunningham, and he just opened up a gate and let us in. And a lot of times we actually got a chance to go into the locker room and mingle with some of the football players there: Fred Belendikoff, George Blanda, Cliff Branch, all those guys. And my dad actually played for the Raiders in 1960, and I think part of a season in 1961. Didn't get a chance to play much, but I got a chance to be around a lot of those guys. Veda Pinson, I met him personally. He was a really, really nice man. And I believe I'm friends with one of his kids on Facebook. Kurt Flood, not so friendly, but very, very intelligent. That I do remember about him. Really smart guy, the father of free agency. But but my dad knew tons of people. There was anytime we went anywhere, people always knew who he was, and I kind of dug that about him. I've kind of felt like a celebrity because my dad was one.
Very good, very good. Yeah. What role did all of that, the relationships you built when you were growing up, and then the relationships you had with your father's peers, how did that help you when you went beyond high school ball?
I think a lot of it was good and bad, because my dad was such an awesome athlete. People kind of expected that of me and my brother. When we were good, but we weren't that great. But I tell you what, it teaches you respect, teaches you humility, and when people do look up to you and want to spend time with you and listen to what you have to say, it's pretty cool. It's kind of shaped me as a human being right now. I mean, I have been here in Midland, Texas, 31 years, and though I'm not involved in any sports or anything like that around here, I've been in the service business here for a lot of years, being a restaurant manager and an insurance salesman. I often get calls from people asking my advice about certain things, or about how to come talk to their kids about integrity. Sports teaches you camaraderie. It teaches you how to work together as a team and all that good stuff. So I was fortunate, very fortunate to grow up in a sports family life.
Fantastic. Fantastic. You mentioned with social media, we can keep relations going, and you're still in contact with some of the people. Who else are you in contact with right now? Did you?
I keep up with one of my teammates, Greg Cantrell. He played with the White Sox. Here recently, I've Shooty Babbitt, who was my shortstop when I was a senior in high school at Berkeley. Keep up with him a little bit. I've talked to Gene Ransom a bit. David Chenier, younger brother of Phil Chenier, the basketball player, he and I talk on Facebook quite a bit. And he always calls me little brother, even though I'm just a year younger than him. But we're fond of each other. He used to work with my sisters in Oakland before he moved away to Pennsylvania. But so those were some of the guys that I keep up with. Not a whole lot. The guys in Italy, when I played ball over there, there's 4 or 5 guys that I communicate on a regular basis with. Yeah, it's difficult. Life happens and people get separated out. And then of course I'm living in West Texas, and it's not easy for people to get to me. You know, it's a lot of desert and dirt out here, but yeah, I keep up with a few.
Good. You mentioned Italy. How was that experience?
Oh man, I tell you, Steve, it was the best baseball experience of my entire life. I played in some really good games and played against some really good people. A Little League, I was involved in a perfect game. There was a kid that threw a perfect game. I won some championships as a youngster at Laney College. I was there for 2 years, and we went from winning only 5 games. And I think Richard Griff was at City College of San Francisco my freshman year. And we only won 5 games that year. The next year we won the championship. And I've had some really, really good experience. But when I went over there, man, it was unreal. I worked out all summer long with Al Woods. I think Ricky Henderson came out and worked out with us a bunch at a gym in Alameda. I think it was called Nautilus, right after you cross the bridge over there. But I went to Italy stronger than I'd ever been. And right out the gate, man, I started hitting the baseball all over the place and making good plays. And after about 3 weeks and us being 15 or 20-0, we won like 15 or 20 games straight, I became a local celebrity. The ball club was in Savona, Italy, which is the upper west coast of Italy, at the top of the boot, real close to France. And baseball was fairly new there. And it was not a time where I would walk down the street and people would not blow their horn, yell and scream out my name. My nickname was Chocolatino, Little Chocolate Man. You know, the only black guy in the entire league. Yeah. And so we'd go to restaurants. We never paid for dinner. You know, people would come and get my autograph, and it was great. It was the greatest time I had over there. It was really cool. It was everything I wanted in a baseball career, except I was in a foreign country.
Now, you said you were involved with the perfect game you were involved with. Was that in Italy?
No, that was a Little League game. That was when I was playing for Cakebread's Garage, and there was a kid. He was can't remember the guy's name. He was his family was from Vietnam, I think, and he was a little short, long-haired, left-handed pitcher, and it was a 7-inning game, and everybody he struck out like half the team, and and we ended up with a perfect game. So. But yeah, I don't know if you folks there know, in California you probably do. The Cakebread family bought a little winery for Jack. He was the dad. Bought a little winery, and now they're multi-million-dollar winemakers.
Really?
Yeah. It's Cakebread wineries in Napa. Oh, okay. And I have had the opportunity to get in touch with one of the sons, Dennis, and because I was a beer and wine manager at a local grocery chain here, and I sent him an email, said, "Hey man, I don't know if you remember me, but I used to play for your dad," and blah blah. And he goes, "Yeah man, I remember you." He says, "I remember you really well, you and your brother Barry." And he said, "I remember you so well because every time we lost, you cried." But yeah, that was with Cakebread's Garage that we had that was part of that perfect game. But
okay, great.
Yeah.
So in looking at your Facebook profile and talking to you a little bit,
Sure.
I think you're busier now than you've ever been. Can you tell us about Red's Gourmet Salsa and some of the other things you're doing right now?
Yeah, my wife and I, we started the business about 8 years ago, and it started out just as a hobby. My mother-in-law loved my salsa, and we'd make salsa every Sunday before football games. It's a big
Right.
football fan, Dallas Cowboys, of course. So I'm always the odd man out in the room, but I make salsa, and it was suggested to me that I should try and sell it. Well, I was working as a restaurant manager at this place. It was 300 table restaurant, big giant ice house, kind of like a Gillies, cowboy bar. And I put salsa and chips on every table. And by the end of the shift, I had 15, 20 orders for salsa. And that's how it got started. And we've been doing it ever since. So now we're shipping all over the place. We've got a clientele online. We're trying to get into a few grocery stores. But our main deal right now is we do what's called the farmer flea market circuit. There's always a flea market somewhere in West Texas. They love that kind of stuff here, and we set up a booth and get after it. This past weekend, my wife is a baker, so she baked 200 pans of 10 different types of brownies, and then right next to her I had, I don't know, 15 cases of salsa. And 4-hour market, we sold out in 2.5 hours. So it keeps me busy. Yeah, it keeps me busy, man. I mean, my taste buds, and I can't smell anything, not because of COVID, but because those hot peppers, they wear on you after a while. But yeah, that's our thing right now. And since I retired back in April, May, I've been able to dedicate a lot more time to it. And like I said before, we've got a flea market that we're organizing for next weekend. We're going to do our own flea market. But yeah, I'm retired, but I'm busier now than I was when I was working.
I think that's a good thing for people.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. I'm not complaining.
Good problem to have. You're busy with the salsa and the flea market. What's on your bucket list? Do you have anything you'd like to do or like to experience?
I think right now, my wife, we talk about it quite often, is I want to take her to Italy. And I want to show her all the places, or as many of the places that I've been to. She's never been out of the country before, and I want to take her there so that we can hook up with some of my teammates and friends that I've made over, during that time, and show her that. I've got 4 grandsons, and I'd like to be able to spend a lot more time with them. If I get a big contract or a big deal with one of these grocery stores, then I won't have to go out and do farmers markets anymore. I could just sit home and collect checks and fly out to Atlanta where my grandkids are and hang out with them, But those are primarily the 2 things that I want to do.
You've got a grandson playing football, correct?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if he's playing now. He's 19 years old. He started out at Georgia State, wide receiver, and has a good many of the talents that my dad has. He's got great hands. He runs like a deer. He's not afraid of contact. But you know how young people are. They're not really. He's not really sure. I'm guessing that's what he wants to do right now. So, and we don't press him, because if your heart's not in it, you're not going to be very good at it. So we're just kind of letting him decide. But he is he was a student at Georgia State, and I watched him play a couple of high school football games when I went out to visit. And the guy's he's unreal. He's a great athlete. Yeah, great athlete. But he's young. He'll figure it out.
He'll figure it out. And then when we were talking before, you also mentioned you might have a book in you.
Have a what? I'm sorry.
A book.
Yeah, I over the years have always kind of jotted down some things that have happened to me in baseball, and it's going to be a book of short stories. Mm-hmm. And I've got a bunch right now, and hopefully next year. My wife's really been pushing me to get that thing done. But I've got a book of short stories, and they're just kind of like short stories about things that have happened to me in baseball. That perfect game is one of them. My first year playing ball in Italy, just kind of give you a snippet. I was told before I got there to make sure you keep your eye on your wallet, because pickpockets at the airports and train stations, that's rampant. And I thought, I'm from Oakland. I ain't scared of nobody, And I get off the plane and my wallet is gone. And I had $40 that my mother begged me to put in my shoe, and I put $40 in my shoe. The money I had in my wallet was to buy another plane ticket once I got to Rome to get to Savona on a small plane.
Right.
Well, I didn't have the money. Somebody had pickpocketed me, and here I am with this big suitcase, this metal locker, and and I'm walking around. I don't know what to do. I don't speak the language or anything, and somehow, as the story gets told, I finally ran into somebody that spoke a little bit of English, and they put me on a train that took 11 hours to get from Rome to Savona. And when I got to Savona, I got on the phone and called the coach. They thought that I wasn't coming, so they'd already called and made arrangements for another guy from America to fly in and take my place. So I was a couple of hours from not being able to play ball over there at all.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, but that's in the book. I'm gonna, like I said, we hopefully by the end of next year we'll have it all put together and try to find someone to get it published for us.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, great stories. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being on the show. We're having great conversations every week and really having a good time. So thanks for joining me today, Monte.
Oh, I appreciate it. I've actually had time to go back and look at some of the other stuff that you've done, man, and I'm super excited. I really appreciate being considered to do this. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, let's keep in touch.
Yes,
and
sir.
To everybody watching, we do this every week, and we hope you tune into all the episodes because we're having a lot of fun. If you'd like to know more about what we do or get more details, go to productivediscourse.home.blog. That tells you about all our activities and how you can contact me if you'd like me to speak at your service club, community organization, religious group, or your Toastmasters club. Please tune in next week. But in the meantime, please like, share, comment, and subscribe so this message will go far and wide, and we'll find that shining needle of common ground in that haystack of fear.